Hello everyone, thank you very much for watching. This is a video response to a film community chat that seems to be going around right now. And before I get into it, I just want to take a moment to pause here and ask a lot of you to please join in because I've been wanting to make a lot more videos on my channel about movies and it doesn't seem to be as big as the music community that I'm involved in, and I hope we can change that. Maybe tell some people about this particular chat that we're having here, or my channel, or join your, other channels, and let's see if we could make this blossom a little bit, because I'd like to make this a bigger community. Okay, well, I watched a video by Gray 1951. That's Mike. He has a really great channel. He's a really nice guy. Enjoy watching his videos very much. And he was talking about a subject, a thread that's going around. Basically, what's your favorite genre of movies? And people looking around here probably can already guess for me. Uh, but also questions of how do you sustain that over the years? Okay, well, I found it very interesting and I wanted to join that. So I'm going to participate. Horror is my favorite genre. It was the first real genre I liked. I mean, I watched a lot of comedy stuff when I was a kid, sure. But as far back as I can really remember it, it's hard to pinpoint the first horror movie you saw, what you remember really made it work for you, or where it really kicked in. I think Boris Karloff's Frankenstein by Universal was probably the first that I watched when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I remember vividly seeing it, and there were some particular scenes that really stuck with me, and I still remember it. One of them is an early scene when the monster is struggling with a torch and kind of fighting with Dr. Frankenstein, and they're kind of wrestling with the torch. And I also remember a scene with Dwight Fry, who plays Fritz, the hunchback assistant, who kind of, I still remember him with like a knife in his teeth, climbing above a beam in kind of like a graveyard or something, where he's cutting down a hanged man from the noose. I can remember that and hearing him like kind of like grunt and make the noises as he's crawling along the edge of the beam. It's very clear to me, um, and that's my earliest memory really getting into it. But for me, it didn't really click until I saw a movie in the series called House of Frankenstein, which had the Frankenstein monster, it had Dracula, it had the Wolfman, and I remember some scenes in there very vividly too. The first time I saw them, around the same age, maybe 7 years old, on TV, something like that. We used to have a couple of channels where I grew up in the New York, New Jersey area. You had Creature Features on Channel 5, and you had Chiller Theater on Channel 11, and they were kind of like on the same times. You had to like kind of go back and forth depending on what was better. That's where I got an appreciation for the Universal monsters. Uh, and I remember seeing The Mummy's Hand, which is another one. I always credit House of Frankenstein and The Mummy's Hand with being the two movies that really put me over the edge and where I said, okay, now I am hooked. That's what did it for me. And my mother used to kind of like, I guess, turn the TV on and put the channel on. I don't know if that was the way they used to babysit back in those days. Put the horror movie on with Frankenstein, let the kid, watch that instead. I don't know, but she seemed to introduce me to them, and I remember watching House of Frankenstein, and there's a scene at the end where the Frankenstein monster, played by Glenn Strange, in that particular film, is actually trying to help the Mad Doctor. He kind of picks him up and carries him to safety. But just before that, he had taken the lab assistant, J. Carrol Naish, and thrown him through the glass in the window. And I remember turning to my mother and saying, "Mom, is he a good guy or a bad guy?" And I remember my mother saying, "No, he's a bad guy." The Frankenstein monster. I was confused. He threw one guy through the window, but yet he's carrying the other doctor to safety. I remember that. Anyway, of course, so Boris Karloff, I grew up with. I love Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. Lugosi and Karloff, my two favorites. And I don't want to forget about Lon Chaney Jr., who made it pretty big as the Wolfman. Don't want to forget him. And, you know, as time went on, I got into other movies. I got into the Hammer films, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee. And yes, I do even watch and enjoy slasher films, you know, stuff like the Friday the 13th series. You know, Jason Goes to Hell here, which a lot of people don't rank very well. And even, you know, fairly modern stuff like 28 Weeks Later. You know, I don't really get into many movies these days. I don't know, they're not as enjoyable as they used to be. So I like all kinds of horror films, but my favorite will always be the old Universal black and white films and the Hammer films. I like the old ones. I do think in a lot of cases less is more. I'm not a gore hound, although I will watch those, as I've often said in the past. You know, I do have a bunch in my collection, and I will watch stuff like I don't know, Blood Feast, Herschel Gordon Lewis, uh, you know, movies like that. But you know, I just have to be in the right frame of mind, and I take them kind of with a grain of salt. Okay. Um, of course, as time went on, I wound up getting other tastes in movies. And I remember when I was 13, my mom took me to see Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I had really been into Jaws that same year, you know, and I was pretty much watching mainly horror films. And I loved One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I remember my mother, after hearing how much I said, Mom, I really like that, telling me, you see, there are other movies besides horror films. I remember her saying that, and you know how true she was on that. How right she was. Now the second part, the question was, how have I sustained this over the years? You know, it's very strange actually. Although horror is still my favorite genre, a couple of things have happened over the last decade or so, and that is, well, first of all, I had a group of friends that were also into horror films, so we used to get together and have movie nights and watch horror films at each other's homes. But I don't see these people anymore. We're not really in touch. We're not friends, really. So that doesn't really work out anymore right now. And so there's nobody really to share with, nobody really to watch with. I kind of like the unity thing, the group thing. The other thing that happened is in 2011, I met my girlfriend that I'm still with, and she's a wonderful woman. I'm very lucky to have her, but she has no interest whatsoever in horror movies at all. She likes romantic movies. Anyway, so as a result of that, I don't put horror films on nearly as much as I would otherwise. So I kind of regret that I'm kind of like, just for those reasons alone, I'm not spending much time really alone watching them. If I do watch a horror film, it's pretty much by myself, you know. I mean, my girlfriend watches some. I mean, some of them she likes better than others. She went to see Alien with me. She likes that movie. You know, she surprises me sometimes. She likes science fiction. Occasionally, she'll watch an older film and say that wasn't bad, but for the most part, she doesn't want anything really to do with them. It's not her thing. Anyway, so that's it, folks, and I really enjoyed this opportunity to make this video, and I hope you'll subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and well, pass the word on. Let's all get our videos going here in the movie community or film community. Thanks, everyone.